Hello, dear students. So now today we would move ahead in this chapter number first of class 10th geography, where today we would study about the set of problems that a resource development face. Okay. So what are those problems that a resource development face? So the first problem could be the depletion of the resource. Okay. As we are knowing, the non-renewable resources are going to be depleted in the future. Okay. So it is again a big issue. Okay, if they are going to be depleted in the future, so how we can use them in the future then? Okay, so it's a huge problem if we are indiscriminately using such non-renewable resources such as coal, petroleum. We are using them indiscriminately. Okay, if we are using them indiscriminately right now, so it would not be available for our future generation also. So depletion of the resource is a big problem in the resource development here. As we are knowing, as we know, as we know, non-renewable resources, non-renewable resources are going to deplete in future. So it's a big problem for all of us. Okay, and the next problem could be the accumulation of the resource. Okay, next problem is accumulation of resource. If all the resources have been accumulated in few hands, okay, like the coal, the petroleum, all these are the resources. Okay, some are renewable, some are non-renewable. If all the resources have been accumulated in the few hands, then the society is also going to be divided into haves and have nots. Like in the it is going to be divided into rich and the poor. Are you getting? Some are having the resources, some are not having the resources. So society is going to be divided into the rich and the poor, means the haves and have nots. So it leads to a big problem then. Okay, so accumulation of the resources is again a big problem in the resource development. Okay, so as we are knowing, accumulation of resources, so you can write here accumulation of resources in few hands would divide the society into haves and have nots, or you can say the rich and the poor. So it would divide the society into the rich and the poor. So accumulation is a big issue again. Okay, means the resources should not be accumulated there in few hands. And the next, that is again a major issue here, and that is indiscriminate exploitation of the resource. Okay, indiscriminate exploitation of resources. Indiscriminate exploitation of resources. If it means that if the resources are being utilized at a much higher extent than they should be, then it leads to some problems. Like now, suppose we have some resources and we are using those resources, like we have the coal, we have petroleum, etc. And if we have the resources right now, and if we are using them indiscriminately, you can say like we are using them at a much higher extent than they should be. Okay, then it would lead to some global crisis, global ecological crisis, such as global warming. It would lead to the environmental pollution, the land degradation. Okay, so so there would be some many global ecological crisis which would be caused by the indiscriminate exploitation of the resources. Okay, so the resources are also not to be exploited indiscriminately. Okay, so indiscriminately, if you are using them, so you can write here indiscriminate, or you can say over exploitation. Because to satisfy our need, so to satisfy our greed, we are using the available resources and we are exploiting them indiscriminately. So in future it would lead to many global ecological crises such as global warming, ozone layer depletion also there, environmental pollution, land degradation. So these are the problems which would be there due to the indiscriminate exploitation of the resources. So over exploitation of resources would lead to global ecological crisis such as uh, like here global warming, okay, like land degradation, like environmental pollution, okay. One more could be like their ozone layer depletion, ozone layer depletion. So these are set of problems which would be there due to the over exploitation of the resources there, okay. If the resources have been exploited or indiscriminately, so it would lead to many global ecological crises. So note it down, then we would be discussing the remedy. What is the remedy then? What would be the remedy if these are the problems? So there should be a remedy. So what are the remedial measures that we should take and that are being taken also, okay, that we would discuss later. First you note it down. So now we would discuss what could be the remedial measures for the problem which is faced by the resource development, okay. So what could be the remedial measures, okay. So first one could be like equitable distribution of the resources, okay. equitable distribution of resources. What does this mean? It means if the resources have been distributed equally in the society, okay, then the society would not be divided into haves and have nots or into rich and the poor. Because the problem is what? The problem is that the resources have been accumulated by the few individuals and they are exploiting it, okay. So this is the reason that the society has been divided into the rich and the poor, because some are having the resources and some are not having, okay. But if you have the equitable distribution of all the resources, then the society would not be divided into haves and have nots, okay. So you can write here. Next one, what could be the another remedy, and that is the sustainable development. That is very important. Sustainable development. What does this mean? Sustainable development means, suppose you have the resources right now in the present and you are using these resources in such a way that the resources are still available for our future generation also. So this is the sustainable development, okay. Like suppose we have coal, petroleum, okay, all these are the resources and we are using these resources if we are using these resources at a sustainable way, then these resources would be available for our future generation also. Yes or not? Yes. So we have not to exploit these resources indiscriminately. If you are not exploiting these resources indiscriminately, so these resources would be available for our future generation also. Means something we have to give to our future generation also, na. Rather, if you are using the available resources completely right now, so how the resources would be available for our future generation then, okay. So sustainable development means utilizing the resources in such a way that the resources are available for the future generations also. So this is the sustainable development, okay. So the sustainable development should take place for if you want to if you want the resource development to take place at a good way, okay. So you can write there, sustainable development means, what does it mean? It means using the available resources in such a way that they are available for future generation. They are available for the future generation also. Okay, so this is the sustainable development. So there should be the sustainable use of the resources. Okay, if we are using them in such a way, then something we would be giving to our future generation also. And the third remedial measure, that is the Rio de Janeiro summit. Rio de Janeiro summit that took place in the year 1992, and this is the place, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Okay, so here the heads of the 100 countries sat together at a place in Brazil. This is Rio de Janeiro. Okay, this is the place in Brazil. Okay, so here in 1992, heads of 100 countries sat together and they discussed the problems faced by the over exploitation of the natural resources, which leads to many global ecological crises like global warming, etc. So these all the crises were discussed here in the Rio de Janeiro summit, and here an agenda was passed, that is agenda number 21. Okay, which talked about combating the environmental damages like the poverty and the diseases through the global cooperation. So these were discussed in agenda 21. So here you can write here agenda 21 was passed, which talked about combating environmental crisis, environmental crisis, poverty, and the diseases through global cooperation. So these were discussed there in the agenda number 21. So these are some remedial measures which can be taken for the resource mobilization. Okay, so that's all for today. We'll be discussing some more topics of this chapter. Till then, stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you. Have a good day.